Yeah, I think the Silicon Valley is losing. I mean, it's still a pretty dominant force in entrepreneurship, but I do believe that it is losing its edge. And there are a lot of other places around the world that are innovative and good places for us to invest and for entrepreneurs to go to run their businesses. Consumers can realize that if they hold Bitcoin, it's going to be worth more in the future. If they hold dollars, they know it's going to be worth less in the future. Which one do you want to hold? And I think it'll also be it'll happen sort of quickly. I think you'll see all of a sudden it'll just be Bitcoin. First it'll be Bitcoin accepted here, and then it'll be like we only take Bitcoin. So we've had some real innovation. So innovation continues to happen in venture capital. AI will have huge effect. I'm using AI in many, many ways.
Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Great to see you too, Burak. It's very exciting. You're doing extraordinary things in a very difficult country.
Your ties are fantastic. How many
Yeah,
ties do you have?
this is a Bitcoin tie, and it says at the bottom there, it says hashtag DGov, decentralized government. And these are they're Draper Associates logos and Bitcoin logos. So this is what I designed. There are I've been given many Bitcoin and other crypto ties. I think I've got 12 Bitcoin ties, and they're all different. But I used to wear these Save the Children ties, and they were great too. And they were all designed by children. My mom gave these to me. She was on the board there. And now I wear these, but I kind of, ties have become a brand of mine, along with the eyebrows. And so I'm pretty consistent in wearing a tie, even though I live in the Silicon Valley where nobody's wearing a tie except me.
I want to learn about your decision framework. Can you describe your framework for making investment decisions, especially in early stage? How much do you rely on data versus intuition, gut feeling, when you evaluating a potential investment?
In early stage, there isn't that much data, except maybe the history of the entrepreneur, going back and finding out what they've done in the past. But there is a lot of instinct, and it's difficult, although easier, to evaluate an entrepreneur via Zoom calls. It was all I did during the pandemic, but now I'm evaluating entrepreneurs. I'm seeing more and more of them in person. We evaluate a couple of things. When I was getting going, I used to just go knock on doors that said something software or something technology or whatever, and ask if they were looking for money. But now there are so many entrepreneurs, and there's so much deal flow. We have incredible deal flow that now we filter to things that are challenging an existing industry. Let's say the industry is getting kind of fat and lazy. They're providing bad service at a high cost. So you could think, okay, what are those? Today, they're banking and insurance and drug companies and government. Governments provide very bad service for the price they charge. And governance is a service, and that's a very difficult concept for people to understand. But now we are very mobile. We can move from one government to another pretty easily. It's not all your friends and family might be in one country, and so moving becomes more difficult. But and a lot of countries have very difficult visa and work permits. But but it is easier to move from one place to another, and you can communicate through these Zoom calls. So all of those industries that are providing bad service at a high cost are in effect monopolies or oligopolies. When new technology comes, that's our defense against those. And when new technology comes, it allows an entrepreneur to get a wedge into that industry and just start that little, grab those customers to do one thing. And then when they grab those customers to do one thing, they might be able to expand and start taking the customers away. That is very exciting for me. I love the idea of renewal, of change, of things that might be controversial. And then when we meet entrepreneurs, I often ask the question, why are you doing this? And the entrepreneurs that answer the question saying, oh, it was George's idea, or I want to make money, or whatever, those are not true entrepreneurs. The true entrepreneurs are the ones that come out going, because my boss was doing it all wrong, or I can't believe that the market is so old and tired, and I can't believe I can't get this done inside my company, or whatever. And it sort of bursts out of their chest. And that, then you've got somebody who's doing it for more than the money, more than their relationship. They're just gonna go for it. And going for it really means staying with it forever, because it's a tough world to be an entrepreneur. And then when we meet the entrepreneur, a lot of the things I'm looking for are subtle. A good salesperson can often fool us, but because a good salesperson can sell me one thing one day and sell me another thing the next day, and I'm still as passionate both times. But I think it's sort of a quiet confidence that people are looking for, that I'm looking for, because that's what attracts good people to a mission. So I guess that's the answer.
What are your thoughts about having an investment committees versus individual partners making the investment decision? Which approach do you believe is most effective?
Well, that's interesting, because I started Draper Associates many years ago, and I built it up, and I brought in John Fisher and Steve Jurvetson, and then a whole bunch of other partners. And when it was me alone, decision making was easy, and our returns were extraordinary. When John came in, decision making became a little harder, because the two of us would fight things out. When Steve came in, it worked out pretty well, because he could be a tiebreaker. And so we always had sort of a good, the returns went back up. But then when we had lots of partners, we had 12 partners, all making, trying to convince each other to do things. That didn't work. And the returns went down. And so I spun out and started Draper Associates again. I went from Draper Associates to Draper Fisher Associates to Draper Fisher Jurvetson to DFJ. And then I went back to Draper Associates again. And with Draper Associates, I make the final call, but I did value the partner meetings, the decision-making process of having a lot of people around the table discussing things. It's just that now I make the final call and the returns are sky high. So I would say in general, 1 to 3 decision makers is probably the best, and probably 1, because then you can take all the heat for making a bad decision, and you can take and then you can give credit to the whole team, because they really were responsible for the good things. So I think that for venture capital the reason 12 partners doesn't work very well, at least at early stage, is that you're trying to catch the excitement of an entrepreneur. And in general, when an entrepreneur is doing something somewhat controversial, only 2 out of the 11 people are going to be for it. And if those 2 can't convince the other 9 to do it, it ends up that you lose these really great opportunities. And so I do think that venture funds with one decision maker are probably going to outperform venture funds with more than 4, more than
Did
3
you did you
decisions.
lose any deals because of the investment committees or partners?
Oh yeah, of
Earlier?
course. Oh, of course. I brought some extraordinary companies into the partnership. They got turned down, and I realized that, hey, I've got to go do this myself. So I did. And when I spun out and did it myself, then I was the decision maker, and I did it with my own money for a while, and made some really good investments. And now I do it with my own money, and we have some investors.
Being an emerging manager in the VC industry, what are the common mistakes, especially in early years while making investments? This is the first question. And also, what are the mistakes of angel investors?
Well, the first question you should ask yourself. Emerging managers, well, any new venture manager often thinks that it's easy and magic, and you just throw money out there and some good things are going to happen. I think you really need to look at every company as though it's a global company, even though you might have an advantage early on for being provincial, for a entrepreneur being provincial. So I would say generating enough deal flow is probably really important, so you can build your judgment. And then I think making sure that you're funding an entrepreneur and not just a salesperson, because that a good salesperson can usually convince you of doing things. So you have to be very aware of the people who are just good salespeople. And then raising money, think of it as an onion. You start from the center of the onion, that's you. So put money into it. And then go to your family and your friends and your extended family and your extended friends and get some of them, and then get them to introduce you to their friends who are wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And then you go further and further out from the onion, and you get to the very wealthy people, and and eventually you might get institutions, but don't count on institutional support until you've already got a good record. The individuals in the family offices might come in before that. So in raising money, that's one of my thoughts, is start with the onion. And then I guess the other advice is don't get too wedded to any one company. Keep that very strict diversification, so so that you're not putting half your fund into one company just because you think it was supposed to work. Often you end up just paying some guy's salary to keep him alive, even though the business just isn't working the way anybody had hoped it would. And then the other thing is, if things don't go well, just thank the entrepreneur and move on. Just thank you. You worked hard. I'm sorry it didn't pan out, and move on. You do not want to be the guy fighting for the last piece of cheese and the mouse going after the last piece of cheese. You want to just move on. You don't know which of your companies is going to make you money, if any, but these guys are trying. and you got to give them credit for trying. They're in the arena. They're doing what they can. They're making something happen, and some of them don't have the skill set to make everything happen. One good test for an entrepreneur is if they can, if a big wall is put up, how they maneuver the wall. Do they have a way of digging under it, jumping over it, going around it? That, I think, that's a good test. Maybe I'll come up with a question that's a good test for the wall. And then just sort of see, are you, because if they are, I don't know of any really great entrepreneur that is a go along, get along kind of person. They all will break down the wall, blow up the wall, run around the wall, dig under the wall, jump over the wall. It's those people that you want to back.
From your experience, global experience, especially, how do you assess the potential of the emerging markets? Emerging and developing markets has different cultures and different mindsets. How do you assess them?
It's interesting. I've learned something as I've traveled around the world that that it is the strong leader who trusts their people and sets them free, and the weak leader who is trying to tell everybody what to do and who is trying to rule by regulation and force. Now, strong leader also has a clear rule of law, but really believes that they are there to serve their community, not the other way around. And given that that's the case, what happens? Well, a weak leader is one who kind of takes on Marxist, Leninist philosophies, kind of thinks, I know better than you do what to do with your life. And think of that as North Korea. And then South Korea is a freedom, open, free market, encourages business, encourages people to build their living, celebrates success, free speech. Those two have been separated for about 70 years. And the average South Korean makes 460 times what the average North Korean makes. And so it's pretty clear that capitalism and democracy and freedom is way more powerful than socialism and communism and dictatorships and whatever. They just don't work nearly as well. So, and why is that? I always take it from the entrepreneur's point of view. And the entrepreneur who is in a country that has all sorts of rules and regulations is spending all their time thinking about what they cannot do. And the entrepreneur that is in a free country is out there doing it. And I think the difference is huge. And that's why you see people, incredibly talented, smart, brilliant people in Russia with their heads down, talking through the side of their mouth, afraid, living in fear, afraid that what they're doing, if they're trying to do anything, and certainly nothing unusual, if they're trying to do anything, they are at risk of losing their lives or losing their freedom or whatever it is. Whereas America historically, and the Silicon Valley in particular, has always had this philosophy of try it. See if you can create something that's better for the customer. See if you can create a better computer, a better stapler, a better desk, a better restaurant, a better hotel, a better way of getting someone from one place to another. See if you can improve it. It's amazing what the conversations are like in the Silicon Valley. They are all about, well, if we do this, then maybe we can apply AI and do, and then do something that's way better for the customer than this. those are the conversations. And they're talking about, well, I'm going to go get venture money so that I can do this, or I'm going to go, I'm going to go work for one of these big companies and I'm going to study this industry, and then I'm going to figure it out. Then I'm going to start my own. That's an attitude that is like, hey, anything goes. Let's go get it done. Now we're seeing more and more regulations in the US, and now other countries are starting to look freer. And so that countries are in competition with each other for the great minds and the capital and the entrepreneurs of the world, and they don't really know it. But they'll learn. People bailed out of California, went to Texas because Texas was freer. They were opening up. They weren't slapping people down for not wearing masks. They were doing. It was really interesting to watch how all these. And then they said, "Oh well, we're only losing the billionaires." Well, turns out if you lose a billionaire, you lose about 100,000 jobs. And then they're wondering why there are all these people that are on the street homeless. And they think it couldn't be that they had the worst policies in the world. It had to do with somebody else. They always blame somebody else. Then they throw more money into it, and so you got more homeless. It really made no sense. It's funny, if you focus on poverty, you get more poverty. If you focus on creating wealth, you get more wealth in a society. It's simple, very simple. So if that's the case, it is when I look for an emerging market, a new country, a new place, I look at the Draper Innovation Index and I see which countries are the best for innovators. And then I'll start investing in those, or the ones that are changing from being socialistic to capitalistic, or the ones who have sort of a dynamic leader who is doing something extraordinary or trying to. That's usually a great opportunity, a great time to go in. And on the other hand, I look at all these entrepreneurs with a global vision, with a vision of they have to not just win in their own provincial area, they have to win globally. And so it's got to be unique enough to win, to become a leader in a big industry.
Given San Francisco's current challenges, as you mentioned, do you see Silicon Valley is losing its dominance for the startups, with new global hubs emerging in coming decades as the main source of successful new companies?
Yeah, I think the Silicon Valley is losing. I mean, it's still a pretty dominant force in entrepreneurship, but I do believe that it is losing its edge. And there are a lot of other places around the world that are innovative and good places for us to invest and for entrepreneurs to go to run their businesses. China used to be one of those places, and then President Xi, he's a very weak leader, and and as a weak leader, he's telling everybody what to do. That's a big mistake. He should be creating a simple, straightforward rule of law, and then let everybody create their life. He doesn't know better than some little family how they should be making a living, but he seems to think he does. So very weak leader, and it's too bad because China was taking off. China was going to be the biggest economy in the world. It was really extraordinary. Now, other countries, Uruguay, India, maybe Argentina with their new leader, El Salvador, Singapore has always been very good for business. Switzerland's always been good for business. Those countries are all starting to rise up and find a good spot for entrepreneurs. And it's entrepreneurs that it's small business and entrepreneurs that really create all the delta in an economy.
Venture capital industry wasn't disrupted for many years. How do you see the evolution of venture capital in the face of emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, and lots of new business models?
You know, I've heard that before, but it is true that a lot of people have come and disrupted venture capital in many, many different ways. Boost, the accelerator, and Y Combinator have sort of turned the model upside down and attracted more entrepreneurs into their model. Andreessen Horowitz decided that they would create the marketing team and the finance team and the whatever team for each entrepreneur to help get them started. That was a new model. There have been a lot. We've created many new models. Meet the Drapers, a show that attracts entrepreneurs to it. Draper University, a new school that trains people to become entrepreneurial. So we've had some real innovation. So innovation continues to happen in venture capital. AI will have huge effect. I'm using AI in many, many ways. In diligence, AI is we used to use search, and now all we do is use these applications that allow you to explore what else is going on out there. And so that helps us in evaluating startups. There's a company called Seer in Singapore that can tell if you're telling the truth or not. And it can evaluate passion and many emotions. And I think that could catch things we don't, just the way AI often catches a polyp in your intestine when a doctor might miss it, or a cancer in your eyeball that the doctor might not have seen. And so I believe AI is going to transform just about every industry in some way or another. And it's very exciting. I think the one that really obviously gets disrupted, and you can tell a lot of them are kind of freaking out, is in the university system. Because if you got 10 professors sitting around a table, 2 of them are saying, wow, the admissions office has done a really good job. These essays are fantastic. And 6 of them are saying, get rid of this ChatGPT. It's a disaster. It's ruining our way of life, and it really, it's forcing them to think about changing. And then 2 of them are saying, wow, somebody just invented something as powerful as the printing press. How are we what's our curriculum going to look like in the future? And those are the 2 that are going to survive the next decade as professors. The other ones are, the Luddites are not going to make it. So I think I think education, as soon as you can read, AI is going to be a huge thing. In fact, as soon as you can talk and listen, AI is going to be a huge thing. I've already got an AI of me. Who knows? This may be the AI of me. You never know. No, but it'll have a watermark on it. But I have an AI of me, and that's going to be a part of Draper TV, our network, and it's going to, announce how some of our companies are doing and what's going on in their press releases and all that stuff. So I think AI is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. Age every once in a while. And I'm sure when the printing press was invented, that was a big wave. When the computer came along, that was a big wave. When the internet came along, that was a big wave. When marketplaces came along, that was a big wave, like Uber and Lyft. And then when Bitcoin came along, that was a big wave and continues to be. That's going to ride for a long time to come. And now AI, that's going to be a big wave. And they kind of come up, come down, and then they change the world. So it takes years, many, many years, because people have to adjust. They're going to go, they all go through this, like everybody thinks it's the greatest thing in the world, and then everybody thinks it's the worst thing in the world, and then all of a sudden it's a huge part of our lives. And it's
Where do
much
you see
bigger.
where do you see the biggest opportunities in crypto and over the next 5 to 10 years?
So, you know, I look at things backwards sometimes. One Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. When you look at Bitcoin against the dollar, the price just keeps going up. Well, it kind of goes, but generally it's going sort of way up. If you put the dollar against Bitcoin, you realize that the dollar is becoming worth less and less and less and less over time. I believe that when I can buy my food, my clothing, and my shelter all in Bitcoin, I can pay my taxes in Bitcoin. I'm not going to need dollars anymore. I'm not going to want to hold dollars. There will be no reason to have dollars. It'll be like when in the U.S. they had a civil war, and the war was between the North and the South, the Union and the Confederates. And there were Confederate dollars and there were Union dollars. And when the Union beat the Confederacy in the war, the Confederate dollars were like hot potatoes. They were trying to get rid of them. My dad, when I was about 10 years old, gave me $1 million of Confederate money. And I went, $1 million? What can I do with this? And he said, nothing. And that was a message to me to realize that there are going to be currencies in the future. My guess will be there'll be fiat currencies that are going to be like that Confederate dollar. And I'm sure, in the Greek drachma, I don't think anybody wants those anymore. The French franc, I don't think anybody wants those anymore. And there will be a time when people say, well, no, of course I'm going to, I'm only accepting Bitcoin. And because they know that has a value and that value continues to increase, and that it's not subject to political whims. It's not subject to somebody just going and saying they want to print money. I don't know if people understand what inflation does, but I think the middle class in America does. When Trump spent $9 trillion, all those dollars that we had are worth now 75 cents. And it's like, you just basically took a quarter out of all of my dollars. And people they kind of go, oh yeah, inflation. What is that inflation thing? Well, that's what it is. It's political forces that print more money. And if they print more money, your money's worth less. If you have Bitcoin, you know exactly what it's worth. One Bitcoin worth one Bitcoin. And then other cryptocurrencies, I'm very enthusiastic about other cryptocurrencies, but I do believe that Bitcoin will be the standard. It'll be the Microsoft. It'll be the IBM. It'll be the Google. It'll be the one thing where everybody kind of centers their commerce around. There was Microsoft, they had this, I see my eyebrows going crazy. It happens. In Microsoft's case, they had an operating system, and they said, hey, build applications on the operating system, just, whatever. And then they build all this stuff, clip art, little games, little stuff. And then somebody built Lotus 1-2-3, and that became pretty valuable, and WordPerfect, and that became pretty valuable. And Microsoft said, I think in our operating system, we're going to include a spreadsheet and a word processor. So that's what's happening now for Bitcoin. It's like you watched Ethereum and others, go out there and be a platform for the sandboxes. People created all sorts of crazy stuff. But some of those things became really interesting. Smart contracts, DeFi, NFTs, whatever. So all those things now are being built on Bitcoin, and you'll see that Bitcoin starts to standardize. I mean, people will start to standardize on Bitcoin. And so that's why over the last, since the last time Bitcoin was here, it has increased in value more than all the other ones. So as a percentage of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin's bigger, even though there have been more cryptocurrencies created. And that's because there's this consolidation that happens where people go, yeah, I'm a retailer. I'm going to accept cryptocurrency. Well, I'm going to accept Bitcoin. They don't say they're going to accept, Polygon or whatever. Although Polygon's quite a good coin.
What crypto regulations do you think that necessary and helpful versus restrictive and harmful?
Oh, I think governments often get it wrong. They regulate on fear. Regulators should regulate on opportunity. They should regulate on where is the opportunity here? How is that going to grow our economy? And what is going to be in the way of that? And the other thing is regulators are always anticipating problems and trying to put rules in front of anybody doing them. And so that's a huge mistake. Regulation should be reactive. They should only come when a lot of damage has happened to a lot of damage, not just a little damage, a lot of damage that has happened to a lot of people. And that's when regulations should step in. Before that, I think regulators should sit and watch. Bill Clinton, to his credit, he had people pounding on his door saying, you got to regulate the internet, and you've got to tax the internet, and you've got to stop the internet, and you've got to halt conversation on the internet. And he said, well, let's just see how it goes. And that was the best thing he could have done, because the U.S. has benefited in a huge way. What is it? 3 or 4 companies are $1 trillion in value because he let it rip. And so why regulate when you can grow your economy that much faster? So when a regulator should be very sensitive to the idea that they should regulate for opportunity, and only regulate with the hammer when a lot of damage has been done. Because most entrepreneurs, most businesses create a lot of good. Much more good than bad. You wouldn't want to go back 50 years or 100 years. It was not a good place. It was not an easy place to live. Now, with our current bodies and our current hearts and minds, going back 100 years before there's indoor plumbing, not a place you want to be. Regulators halt that progress if they try to do one of two things. If they try to put in anticipatory rules, which I think are a big mistake, or if they create a black cloud where they're just, going in and waiting for something to happen and then fining people for things that they did that weren't a part of the regulatory environment at the time. Crypto came up. They're trying to apply rules that are 80 years old to cryptocurrency. Well, there's no way that 80-year-old rule would be relevant to something that is happening today. It just doesn't make sense. So, I think, and now I'm starting to get some entrepreneurs that start talk about regulators, and I think, oh boy, that is dangerous. Because entrepreneurs should be out there just with open minds and open hearts and thinking about how they can make the world better for their customers. They should not be thinking about, am I stepping on some, Rule 416C21A1II that says something about, a business that was created 40 years ago. It just, yeah. Anyway, I think we have too many regulations. We have overlapping regulations. We have, I think regulators, if they add a regulation, for every page they add, they should take away two.
When do you think that crypto can fully replace the fiat currencies?
I'm probably not the right one to ask because I thought it was going to be done by 2022. So I was a little optimistic, and I think regulators got in the way of progress there, and they did slow it down, and that's probably one of the reasons that we're not there yet. But it's coming. Of course, it's coming. It won't be long before the retailers realize they can save 2% every time they take Bitcoin instead of dollars. Consumers can realize that if they hold Bitcoin, it's going to be worth more in the future. If they hold dollars, they know it's going to be worth less in the future. Which one do you want to hold? And I think it'll also be, it'll happen sort of quickly. I think you'll see all of a sudden it'll just be, Bitcoin, first it'll be Bitcoin accepted here, and then it'll be like, we only take Bitcoin.
So any prediction by end of this year?
No, I'm not too good at those, it turns out. I'm better at 5 to 10 year projections, or 15 years. 15 years, we're all going to be flying around in flying cars where there are going to be cures for cancer, heart disease, diabetes, cures where it's one shot or one pill. It's not going to be like treatments that go on forever. And that's going to change all of the whole dynamic of drug company. And I think the other predictions are, I know you're trying to get a price out of me on Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure at the end of this year, maybe we'll be at 250,000. It feels right, but I don't think I want to make the prediction because the problem is everybody asks me now because I was right once. I said when Bitcoin was 180, I said Bitcoin will be 10,000 in 3 years. And almost to the day, Bitcoin hit 10,000. And I thought, oh, well, I can predict anything. And then I predicted when Bitcoin was back down to 4,000, I predicted 250,000 in another 4 years. And that didn't happen. So either I'm 1 for 2 or I just got lucky. So I don't think I'll go out into the spirit world unless it's really, unless it comes to me. I want the spirit world to, send it to me, not the other way around, not like just because a reporter is asking me for it, I get it. Yeah. So I won't give you a price prediction unless I hear it from the spirits, and then I'll let you know.
How does Draper University encourage students to embrace the failure and also innovation? Because Draper University is an extraordinary education program. So how do you encourage failure?
So we have a pledge at Draper University. I will promote freedom at all costs, do everything in my power to drive, build, and pursue progress and change. My brand, my network, my reputation are paramount. I will set positive examples for others to emulate. I will instill good habits in myself. I will take care of myself. I will explore the world with gusto and enthusiasm. I will treat people well. I will fail and fail again until I succeed. And the one they remember of all that, I mean, then there are some other lines. But the one line they all remember is, I will fail and fail again until I succeed. The reason there is the reason I use the word failure is that it is a word no one wants to hear in academia. It's not a good thing in academia. And when you come out in the world, if you aren't willing to fail, you aren't willing to try anything. You don't do anything. If you're not willing to fail, you don't do anything. You're just living. You're not doing things for the people, for the planet, for the whatever. But if you're willing to fail, the world's your oyster. You can do anything you want. And for other people, within rule of law. And that really opens creativity. It gets people going. It's a real positive force. And somehow Draper University has been incredibly valuable to almost everybody who's been through it. And the reason I know is that there's some things like if they go back to big companies, they get promoted 3 or 4 times within a year. If they go to back to school, their grades either go straight A's or they go to A's and D's because they are running a company on the side. If they go out and start a business, those businesses tend to outperform other businesses. Now we've had 4,000 people through. They've started 1,000 businesses. School's 12 years old now, and 5 are unicorns. There are probably 50 that are in the $100 million value range. We say Harvard and Stanford take you for 4 years and say that they will get 85% of your jobs when you get out of school. And we say we take you for 5 weeks and our average graduate creates 7 jobs. So it's a whole different way of thinking. And that different way of thinking turns out to be incredibly valuable right now. Something that the world needs right now. I sensed it, though, when I started the school. I thought, the world needs more heroes. People, even Satoshi Nakamoto put his head in the sand, didn't want to be out there because of the possibility, I'm guessing, possibility of the press coming after him for completely transforming the entire financial system of the world.
What skills are the most important for entrepreneurs today that you teach? Because you have non-traditional subjects at Draper University. What skills are most important for entrepreneurs today?
Yeah, I think confidence is probably one of the most important skills. Having confidence, being willing to operate in uncertain environments, having continuing to be proactive when the seas are calm, where nothing's going on. Yeah, there are kind of some interesting metaphors. One is if you're becalmed, you just keep pushing the tiller. You move it yourself. If it's a storm, you're steady through the storm. If there's chaos around you, you're just steady through the storm. So I think that those are some of the things that you want to do. And in getting started, it's just take that first step. You'll learn a ton.
Do you still participate in the training program, or do you skip that?
At Draper University, yeah.
Yes.
I go to survival training, and I'm there for the first day and there for demo day. But we have an extraordinary team that has really been well trained to do all the things that need to be done with the people. There is a total mental state transformation that happens in that 5 weeks.
How do you get motivated yourself personally? How do you maintain your balance and clarity in your personal and professional life?
I I asked my dad something like that once, and he goes, I don't know. You're doing some cool stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. But I think I get a kick out of things where I do something new. Um, Other people get a kick out of it. Like some people learn in different ways. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by um, doing. I learn by doing. Uh, and I do believe that you want to make sure that you're a body in motion. I think that's important. Keep moving forward. And then if things get a little out of whack, it's not a bad idea to meditate. Uh, Take a little time, put yourself in a little, quiet spot, and then let your mind go free for a while. That can actually do some really good things for you. And then, it's okay to worry about what other people think. But if you know that you're doing something that's going to be really good for people in 5 or 10 or 15 or 50 years, it's okay to be for them to think you're a little crazy. It's okay. You just have to have the confidence to go all the way through it. And at the end, they'll see the light and they'll all think it was their idea. But there's some real beauty to it. So if you know you're on a track to really transform the world, you got to make sure that you have the confidence to follow through, and that confidence will increase as your success continues. So keep building your business a little at a time, and then there will be moments where all of a sudden you're an overnight success, and then just keep innovating from there. Keep improving the world for your customers, and then everybody will be better off. You'll get more customers.
Is there any fun fact nobody knows that you can share about yourself?
Well, I know that I've had the question before, and so that fun fact is already out. Well, recently, my daughter went. She met a psychic who's actually a real psychic, and made me go talk with her. And so my mother's been dead for 5 years or something, and I communicated with my mother. So there you go. There's a fun fact no one's heard, but it was really wild. Like, what? How can you do this? What's going on? Turns out she had seizures when she was younger, and brains are magical things. There's a lot to a brain, and some of it apparently connects with the other side.
Is there any book that changed your mindset, professionally or personally?
Yeah, there was one when I was about 21. Well, there are a lot of books are great, but one that really changed my philosophy or strengthened my philosophy. It was called Bionomics, and the idea is that we're all biological creatures, but we evolve, and we evolve in fits and starts based on economics. And so he goes through the evolution of various creatures and how certain creatures survived and others didn't based on certain things. And he applied that a lot to. It was by Michael Rothschild. He applied it a lot to how economics works in fits and starts, and it's kind of I've always looked at it now in that way, that you'll get a new technological wave, and it'll go through turmoil, but it will change the whole nature of humanity, and we'll all be doing something new. Right now, we're sitting here talking to each other, looking through a screen. Even 10 years ago, we weren't doing that. But we're evolving, and it'll grow in fits and starts. So I would say the computer was one of those fits and starts. The internet, marketplaces, Bitcoin, AI, and there will be others, and they're happening maybe faster and faster because there's more and more innovation. And innovation is halted by regulation, or really slowed down by regulation. And so regulators should be aware of that you want more innovation. And as a result, you want to really be very careful and very slow to apply some regulation that's going to affect, in the US, 300 million people, but around the world, it's 8 billion people who are affected by some little regulation that some guy does. Be very careful about that, because you can harm the world in a big way by creating a regulation that halts innovation.
Tim, this has been truly been an inspirational and insightful discussion. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experiences. An amazing episode. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Burak. And send me a link.